All right, so I want to talk a little bit about this whole Canada-Trump story that's blowing up in the media right now because a lot of people are unable to understand what the deeper meaning is behind all of what is being shown at face value because this is a lot of it a facade for other things. And if you've been following me with regards to this battle against the deep state, then you would understand what is really going on as we're being showed or portrayed a certain story, a certain narrative on the outside, but other things are happening behind the scenes. So let's talk about it, get briefly into some of the updates in the news, and then talk about some commentary and other things as we try to unravel the news and the times around us. All right, so it seems like almost overnight in the last week, things were just blowing up. And so just a short version of what happened is that Trump recently tried to use 50% tariffs to force Canada to unwind policies that he considers discriminatory against U.S. products. And then Canada negotiated for weeks and came very close to a compromise. And again, this has been going on for the better part of the year, but the deadline was around August 19th, and things just blew up here. But then Trump announced that they had basically a deal, and then 3 days later, negotiations collapsed. The 50% tariffs went into effect, and Carney from Canada pulled his negotiators out of Washington and promised a dollar for dollar retaliation. And then Trump escalated again by threatening 50% tariffs on Canadian autos, parts, and turning this whole dispute increasingly, in some sense, to the media, what seems like a personal thing. But what the media is reporting is what's actually happening at face value. And there's real effects and outcomes and consequences to all of this with regards to the farmers, the manufacturers, all these people. And he's posted about this. This is back on the 24th, where he talked about Canada ripping off the U.S. for years, having ridiculously high tariffs on our farmers and farm products, making it impossible for American patriots, and that there's been a $60 billion deficit between the two countries. He's saying not anymore. And then from the January 1st of 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts and steel, this being increased to 50%, and all of this. So, I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but basically this rhetoric, this language, going later into the same day, talking about Doug Ford, the premier of the Canadian province of Ontario, talking about him and saying various things. There even was a time where people were talking about how Trump and many others were saying that the French-speaking nation or some parts of Canadians saying this and that about it, but then he countered and said, I would never interfere with Canadians speaking French, even posting this as a meme to say, let's rename Lake Ontario to Lake America, and then bringing into the light all of these different issues for 100% tariffs and more. For 10 years, they couldn't certify Gulfstream jets until Trump got involved. They wanted 100% of the market for Gulfstream's Canadian competitor, many other issues, and then still amping this language up, going back and forth over the last 10 years. The U.S. lost on average $60 billion a year with Canada. And even Mark Carney responding, Canada will match the U.S. tariffs dollar for dollar, in addition introducing $7.5 billion in new enhanced measures to support Canadian workers and businesses. And so there's a lot going on here. And others reporting some of the outrage. Canadian Doug Ford, after the Truth Post, saying that we're going to hit the red states hard, and just furying and, all this response stuff. And of course, a lot of the commentary by various people talking about the economic impacts of this D-Day in North America. People could be plunged into darkness, and gas prices and food costs and just all the stuff. We need each other. And, part of the exports and imports, it could be offset or they can't be, and all this other language where people are saying we don't need Canada, we don't need the U.S., they're going to come crawling back, and just all of this language. And many people are talking this up because the seriousness of how long Canada and the U.S. have been allies. There's no walls, there's no soldiers between these borders, 5,525 miles, and some commentary from Tukey here, but the closest ally America's ever had is now threatening to turn the lights off. Trump started a trade war with the one country that never needed a treaty to prove it was loyal, and now loyalty has a price. So people talking a lot about some of these impacts. And many others looking at this from a higher level strategic perspective. Joe's comment here, fact, without the U.S., Canada could not survive. Canada sends roughly 3/4 of all its goods exports to America, and the U.S. market is where Canada gets the overwhelming majority of its money and economic oxygen. Trump put 50% tariffs on a lot of Canadian goods. That's sure to bring in a lot of extra money to the U.S. Treasury. It's also going to cost jobs in Canada and force businesses to move to the U.S. to survive, especially manufacturing businesses. Carney thought he would play China against Trump in the trade deal. Trump called his bluff, go trade with China, and let's see how many new American companies sprout up to permanently place or replace Canadian manufacturers. And the analysis goes on and on. Some users asking AI and others, how could realistically Canada replace the US market with Europe and Asia goods if trade relationship seriously deteriorated? Short answer, Grok here says no. The US still takes over 70% of Canada's merchandise exports. Europe and Asia combined are under 25%. Geography, energy pipelines, auto supply chains, and shipping costs make full replacement unrealistic. Serious deterioration would inflict severe, lasting economic damage. So there's a lot here. Economists, many political pundits, everybody speaking their mind. But the issue here is that it's really not about Trump versus Canada. X22 saying this commentary, Canada is being used as a proxy in a much larger economic war. The battle is really between the central bank and what Trump is trying to do right now. And that it was never about Iran. Iran is the proxy. Canada is a proxy. Ukraine is a proxy. Venezuela was a proxy. Ask who's actually being fought. And many people are realizing this battle, which is the battle against the deep state. The Iran or Canada or whatever is the final battleground or part of the battleground. Remember, Canada is part of Five Eyes. This post 1667 Q post saying Five Eyes Alliance, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. And we're seeing certain things being played out in this theatrical or movie theater type performance that we are seeing. And as I've talked about before, this issue with uranium-1 having been exported from Canada. Remember, the uranium and all that battle with the nuclear stuff, it began, a lot of it, with Russia, Canada, and the company there, Uranium-1. And that was a big deal with regards to the Q post. Why is information, this post 46, information Barack Obama, BO, important, Uranium-1 and export approval to Canada to EU. Where's BO today? Did BO and his admin ever make false statements that Uranium-1 would never be exported from the US? Who made those statements? Who did they report to? Why is this relevant? Q post 2217 saying billionaires 187, Five Eyes, FVEY, safety house build, U1, Uranium-1 funnel, Canada, X. This is from Q here. And then Q post 1069, you have more than you know. Steel, tech, America for sale, systematic weakening of the US, Uranium-1, cash flow funnel, inside job, traders. We are in control. Those awake can see. So you got to understand here that this battle that we are seeing, although there are repercussions with the people that are living in a certain country, but it's being done for a certain reason. It's economic chokeholds. It's getting people that are in the darkness to come out into the light, the double agents, those that are traitors. And you're seeing this on the big stage. Who's saying what? Pay attention to what's being done. What kind of moves and counter moves are being done. Don't just look at it from a perspective of, oh, Canada versus US and Trump versus whatever. There's a deeper battle. Trump is doing this intentionally. The White Hats are doing this intentionally. It's not about making a new enemy with Canada and this hostility. It's being done for a certain reason, to bring certain things out into the light and to restrict the deep state money flow, the deep state strongholds that are being done, that are being played out. This is a proxy game, proxy war. This is not about just hating on the Iranian people and the Canadian people and all this other stuff. It's about a certain control that's being done even within the borders of the US, but also in Canada. This is the next part of this theatrical and this real war that we are in. But ask yourself, what's really at play here? What's really important? Don't just look at it from a facade, optical, outside perspective. What the news is reporting is true from an economic impact standpoint, but at the same time, look at what's happening behind the scenes. What is really being played out with regards to this whole white hat versus black hat war that we are living in? So be blessed, be encouraged. Love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.